there's not too many of us left from the early years. Lucille Cook is one of the few remaining people from the early years. So,
Yeah. And he still picks up
I
Saturdays.
pick up Sundays over at Target, and then I come down, check on the questionables in the box here, and then work with Kathy on the postal food drive, sorting of that, and that's about a 3-month job.
Exactly. So, okay, so let's talk big picture. First of all, if you didn't all know, the food bank here has just revised its core values, its mission, and our vision statement. And we need to put this up around the facility, but I'm just going to read it verbatim for you, okay? Core values. We are compassionate in all relationships. We honor and respect the dignity of our clients. We demonstrate integrity in all matters. We are efficient stewards of all resources. We value innovation for continual improvement. We provide exemplary service to the community. Our mission, we provide our neighbors with food assistance and other resources to foster self-sufficiency and achieve long-term success through innovation, compassion, and community support. And our vision statement, we will empower our community by providing the tools to lift people from poverty. So that's big picture. And how do we do that? I wanted to share with you some of the numbers of donated food from the most recent year, 2014. So if you combine donated food, food drives, and commodity food, food coming into the building here is 1,014,272 pounds, or 506.9 tons. Okay. Then we purchase food for backpack, for client choice, and for mobile pantry, and that adds an additional 163 tons. Okay. All that food then goes to serve around 1,100 families. Families are about 4 or 5, so that's a lot of food going to a lot of people. So you all are making a very big difference. If you didn't know those numbers, I just wanted to bring you up to date. And we're growing. We've been growing single digits for at least since we've been in this building, and I'm sure longer. And so we're doing some things to increase the capacity. You know, the warehouse here is a few years old. We're getting new trucks and whatnot in order to accommodate that demand that we're embroiled in. So the interesting thing, though, when it comes to food safety and dates, is that so I've been here almost 2 years, and I've only got complaints from clients about 2 times on the phone. One was lasagna noodles, and the other one was, I can't remember what it was. But I know...
That was out of date, you mean?
Yeah, that it was out of date, right. But I know, as you all know, that, you know, people that are receiving the food for free, they're not very likely to complain. So we're setting the bar higher to make sure that we're giving out safe, healthy food. So,
yeah, we get more complaints from you all when you find a can out on the client shopper shelves. So
That's the first
that's
line of
actually-
defense.
But that's actually a big deal, I think, because it means that you are doing a fantastic job
Sure.
of making sure that most everything is up to date. So
sure, and it goes back to one of our core value statements. We are compassionate in all relationships. It would not be very compassionate to give someone outdated food. Here's the interesting thing. I think this is very valuable to have all of you from different days in one room at one time. Because ultimately the solutions for proper food safety sorting lies in this room, both today and then on the 28th when we do it, and then those of you that are watching the video, it's all going to be, all of the solutions will come out of the training today. If you've traveled around to any of the food banks around town, Jim mentioned the Action Center. We are unique. The Arvada Food Bank is very unique in the way that we receive and process the non-perishable canned donations. Partly because we get so many canned food donations from the community. The postal food drive is amazing. We get an amazing amount of food. But what I'm saying is that other pantries don't receive as much of the canned and the dry goods. And so they don't have a system like we do that's been developed over 30 years in order to ensure safety. So that's something to be really proud of. I think it's great. So really all that's missing, you know, we've got the mission, we've got the core values, we've got the food coming in. All that's really missing is the good, consistent training. And so at this point, then we'll just jump right into the specifics of food training. So Dwayne, take it away.
Thank you, Mark. Mark is, I want to give some credit to him since he came on a couple of years ago. He has really instilled some new values to the food bank's operation and the interaction with the volunteers here. And he's just very well organized and on top of everything, and I'm very proud of having him here. I thought it might be proper to go back and do some historical background on the food bank. This is our third facility. Our original facility was over on Balsam Street, just across the way here. It was in an old converted house that the city had bought because they took over that whole block next to the police department over there, that whole block. They've got their TV station over there, and their print shop is down that street. And then they had this house where they gave it to us as our original food bank. We evolved out of the Human Resources Department of the city. They dispensed food help to the people of Arvada, and it was growing, and it got so big that the city couldn't handle it. So through some connections of a lot of churches who were doing little small pantries, we developed a core group, and with the help of having the house now, we started the food bank there. It was just a small building. It had a basement. Our sorting was all done downstairs in the basement. In fact, the conference table that's back there in the community room next to the north window that has flowers on it, that was our sorting table for many, many years. It survived three moves, and so now it's back there. We've got such volume now that we had to go to larger tables. So that's a piece of history that's still back there. But we would do the sorting in the basements, and it was really cool down there, not only in temperature-wise, but there was no back door buzzes going off. There was no telephones. There was no cell phones. We just had it all to ourselves down there, and we could just sort us to our heart's content down there, take the food upstairs, and we had a sorting table or boxing table upstairs where we did boxes of food determined by the size of the household: a 1, a 2 box, a 3, 4, a 5, 6, a 7, 8, a 9, 10 box. And this was our guidelines for filling those boxes upstairs. They'd get one for a box of 1, they'd get a box of cereal and a mac and cheese and 3 cans of fruit and so on. So the larger the household, the more items went into those boxes. And then the clients would then resack the food from the boxes at the counter where they came in, and then the boxes would go back to the boxing room, and the gals would refill the boxes here. So it just rotated like that all afternoon long. But we were starting to grow at that time. That's when I came on as director, and I got involved in fundraising and networking throughout the city, and we started making all kinds of connections with people and organizations and churches and businesses. So the volume was starting to grow, both for need as well as need of food. And so we went begging again to the city and said, we've outgrown this place. Oh, we even had an elevator there. We got so sophisticated that we had a fundraiser, and we got an elevator that took our food from downstairs, upstairs, and vice versa. So it saved on a lot of back problems. Then this building became available. We did some scouting, found this building here. This was the old Arvada Library. is now since relocated in Old Town. And so we became competing with the police department. The police department wanted the old library for a SWAT team training. And, but we know a lot of people in high places, so we, we said feeding the poor is a better need than what the SWAT teams are needed for. So we got the building for $1 a year. We really cut a good deal. And, but it had to be renovated. So we had a capital campaign project, and the dollars just literally rolled in. I've never been involved in a fundraising dollar-wise project that was so successful as the capital campaign for here. And we have become so successful with this that we get a lot of high marks around the city from other food banks. We've sort of set the example and the norm for how to run a food bank, and everybody that's been here is very proud of that. And you coming on as relatively new volunteers should have some of that background and feel good about it too. So it sort of brings us to the point of why you're really here and why you in particular. Well, you have been singled out as being exemplary volunteers in the food bank because of your dependability and your quickness to pick up on what we do here and how to implement it. So we would like to ask you to become lead sorters. Lead sorters would be responsible for a shift, the normal day probably that you normally work here, AM or PM, and you would be the sole minds and eyes of the sorting of the food that comes in the back door. We will pretty much eliminate all other sorters. No more community service young people. Not that that's not good, but we'll try to steer them into some other volunteer areas of the food bank. But this is something that has to be learned over a period of time, all the integral parts of what a can, the value of the can is, and know where to look for the dating on it. So if you can become trained to do this on a consistent basis, your shift every week, it should prove a lot of great results down the line. We would have backup sorters that would be certified as well. So on high volume times, you'd have a backup person here to help you. And if you are off for sickness or vacation, something like that, the backup sorters would fill in your place. During the postal food drive will be your first initial getting your feet wet, because we'll have a large volume of food at that time. And so we'll work out a system that you can help me back in the sorting room and out here as well during that sorting period, but we'll touch on that a little bit later. So coming up to this point here, let's do a little break and open it up for any comments or questions that you'd like to ask of me. Yep, Jim.
I noticed that, you know, if we have something questionable, we put in the question box, and I noticed that when you come in sometimes, you'll pick it up and then you'll put it on the table.
Mm-hmm.
What did we do wrong when we looked at the date? So we tried to go by that.
Well, it wasn't that
What did you look at?
it wasn't necessarily something that you did wrong. It was something that whoever was doing the sorting, do I or don't I? So rather than go one way or the other way, why don't you just give it to me and I make that determination? I don't know who it was that put it in there, but and that's unfortunate, because then I would have been able to help better explain that to them. So hopefully today I've taken some things out of the questionable box to look at, and some things that I found over in the goat box, which is another whole area, and some things that I've taken off of the shelf, the table and or out there on the shelves out there. So I'll address that here momentarily. Yes, Ted?
I thought when we put in that box with cans that didn't have a date on them, we couldn't determine whether it was good or not because there was no date. And
Right.
I was wondering how do you handle the ones without the date?
That comes from being associated with products over a long period of time and you become somewhat familiar how long that label has been around. Companies change their labels every so many years, and so you can look for that to see if that's a current label, and then just look for the exterior condition of the can, and then also look to see what the product is itself. If it's a tomato-based product or pineapple-based with high acidity in it, that brings up another red flag because it has normally a shorter life to it than, say, a can of green beans. So again, it's just experience with having seen and used and looked at that product over a period of time that it just becomes second nature to you.
So, let's say you find something that's that big, is it something that you might put out on the free table?
The freebie table I'm going to talk about, there are some lines in the sand, so to speak, that you can either go throw it out or pass it on to the freebie area, to the clients, so that's not charged against their client choice area. Life products, meat particularly. Meat has a long, because it's got the ingredients in there maintains the life of a meat product a lot longer. So it generally has a lot longer life. And vegetables have long life, 5 years, 7 years, 8 years. But it's the peak of quality that changes in that. So the dates that are generally on a can is the peak of the value of the quality of that food. If it goes beyond that date, well, the food will still be nutritional and still get all the benefits from that. It just won't have the taste and the flavor to it that it originally did. I've got a table here of some of the commodity items. And again, it's having seen them over a period of time. I guess the one that I see the most often in the questionable box is heart. That's a commodity. And they've got soup, they've got tomato products, they've got just about every product is in this heart. And generally there's no dating on it. The dating that is on the can, that's an internal manufacturer dating. They can look at that date, and there's a date in there when that was cooked and then processed and then passed on to the stores. But we don't have privilege to that. We can obtain it, but it's just so complicated that we'd never get anything done. So, but heart products, just have to look at, identify what it is. A vegetable, that's a long life. But if it starts to show any deterioration, well then obviously then that sends up a red flag and you don't want to keep it around. Been seeing a lot of this in the questionable box, North Pride corn. It's another new commodity that's come through on TFAP. Been getting a lot of that lately. And
Dwayne,
yes.
are you saying that on those commodity items, unless we see some kind of rust or damage to the can, that we should just put them out instead of?
Right, yeah, you don't have to question it. Royal applesauce is another one. We see a lot of that during seasonal times of the year. Gets put in the box. This is a new one. Our family, that may be coming from a dollar store. I'm not sure. No dollar store has a lot of generic labels over there. But I've started to see some of this show up, and I don't know if it's back out on the commodity or not, but no dating again. But it's brand new. This product has been around a long time, Southgate. See a lot of questionables on that, but unless it shows any deterioration in the can, it's okay. Vine line or vine ripe tomato sauce, commodity item. But you have to watch that extra special to watch for that bulging. Allen's sliced carrots. And Lakeside, Lakeside is a commodity. And California Healthy Harvest is another one that shows up. Now this come out of a store because it's got a price on it, so I'm not sure which store carries this. This is a commodity, the lakeside beef. Gosh, I've seen this around for forever. And it gets questioned a lot. I'll find a lot of that in the box, but those that are experienced will automatically put it up here. Looking at the 2 on there, there used to be a chart here to determine what size gets a 2, a 3, and a 4 marking. Are you familiar? Is it down there?
Yeah, there's a notebook.
Okay. I still see a lot of product on the table that has no numbers on it at all. Sometimes I'll do it myself, and then I can't find a felt tip marker. So I guess my suggestion would be that get a half a dozen of those markers out of the box and just put them along the back of the flats there, so they're always there. Yeah, they roll off of these tables now, but you could do that. So that is an example of the some of the commodity items.
You just mark the exception, right? If it's a 1, you don't mark it.
No. We used to do that. But then we found out that that takes too long, so now the 2s and above, right. These are items that I found on the table the last month or so. This one I found out on the client choice area. Rice-A-Roni has been around a long time, but that box goes back, 15 years anyway. I remember sorting those a long, long time ago. In fact, the date, they wasn't even using a dating system back there. So it just seemed like common sense would have said, there's something not right about that box. Now this one looks pretty good to look at it, even though there's no dating on it. But if you look at the underside and the store label on it, it's pretty old. So generally boxed items that has a container inside to hold the food in can generally get a 5-year rating on that. But just the fact that it had that bad label on it, I wouldn't want to give that to the client, because it's suspect. And products like this, this was underneath. It's chow mein noodles. Has no dating on it, but just the product itself is kind of grungy looking, and I certainly wouldn't want to pick that up to take home to my family. This box here, we get a lot of stovetop, especially during Thanksgiving time. We're just deluged with it. And again, about a 5-year dating on it. This is 2010, so it's right on the border. So my advice to you on that is that by the time this gets onto the shelf and sets out there, because we'll have so much of it, it's going to go beyond that 2010 date. So it's going to be old before it ever gets to the client. So if it's right on that border, I would more than likely just pass it on in the freebie area and take it out and put it in the lobby area. Somebody put these in my questionable box that I had over here, and said this came out of the miscellaneous area, green chilies, and so it must have been out there. It's bulging, something terrible. And the same way on the Sloppy Joe sauce, and it's bulging. But in addition to that, it's got some residue on the top. And I've noticed that, taking this off of the table here, it's got something on it. My suggestion there would be, when you find items that's coming through like that, maybe just set them aside, and then after you've accumulated whatever, go get something damp and wet, and then clean them all off at the same time, rather than go and clean it and then come back and go and clean it and come back. Just set it aside, and then clean it and put it out on the shelf. This can of spinach, bulging at both ends. This was on the shelf out here, as was this can of roast beef, and this has got to be, 8, 9 years old. It's no date on it, but it goes way back. Yeah, this is the most common item that goes bad is tomato sauce. And this is 2014, and it's bulging already. And, this is the 2009 can of soup, beef consommé. Found that on the table here. And items that have crimped edges like this that can be opened on the bottom is still good. All they have to do is flip it, and if it really gets bad, then put it in the freebie area. As long as it can be opened partially with a can opener, it's still edible and it's still usable, and it's wasteful to throw it away as long as somebody can use it and get inside the can.
As long as it's not outdated.
As long as it's not outdated, correct. Some cans are has a bottom on it that can't be opened. Can't see. Yeah, some of the soups, yeah, cranberries is one. So yeah, if it doesn't work on the top, then get rid of it altogether that way. We're trying to not waste food, trying to let somebody be able to use it without being penalized against their client choice quantity out there. And
How about dented cans?
dented cans, yeah, I was sort of referring to that as long, on the side particularly. If it's really severe, then put it out in the freebie area. But if it's just a minor dent,
I was thinking that maybe the dent was causing the bulge.
sometimes it does. Yeah, sometimes it does. So you have to weigh that. If the date is really current, then it's probably still good, but then I would put it out in the freebie area. Yeah, Jim.
I'm just sitting here, so I noticed this. Now,
Okay.
is that too
That-
dented?
Well,
What would you,
yeah, it's a tomato product, and probably it's going to be passed on and not picked up if there's a lot of similar items in there. If there's not very many in there and they don't have that much to choose from. So probably I would put that out on the freebie. Right. That was in there. Let's see. Oh, this Near East rice has been a confusion for sorters over the years, because when you look at that, I don't see any date, but you have to tilt it just so the light hits on it right. You know that? And in this case, it's 2011. So it's embossed in there, but boy, is it hard to read. Again, it's right on the borderline of date, and it's not in a self-contained package inside. So varmints do work their way into some of these lids, and particularly some of the pastas. You really have to be careful on some of the pasta boxes. If the box looks like it's had some shelf life and some wearing on it, I'd be suspect of boxes like pasta, because I think that's what Mark got the complaint on. They found some varmint inside a box of pasta that had been on the shelf for too long. And not everybody keeps a clean house like we do, and so you have to be suspect of where this food. A lot of this food comes from people that have passed on, and the relatives have gone in and cleaned out the cupboards, and some of that stuff has been on there for ages. So when it gets close to that deadline, pass that on to either throw it away or put it out in there in the freebies. Now, you really had to have good eyes to find this, and somebody did, and they put it down in the questionable, but it's got a little mouse hole up there, and you could have easily gone by that and missed that. Oatmeal. I see a lot of oatmeal go in the questionable box. Again, oatmeal, it's got a long life to it. So as long as that package looks pretty good, I would continue to put it in the cereal box down there, and then they'll package it with half a dozen other to make one serving. 2012 can was in the questionable with a dent on the back. 2012 still falls within the perimeter of 4 to 5 years on a can, so I would have kept that. Somebody this week brought in a whole lot of tomato sauces. Were any of you working this week when all those sauces came in? Most of them were pretty bad. This one here was 1989. So I don't know what the question on that was. Yeah, Ted.
Is there a difference between the glass bottles versus the plastic bottles? They have the same shelf life on them? See, like the plastic bottles, you get a lot of citrus in that also.
Yeah, I would say yes. They have the same life, right? Yeah, Jenny.
We've noticed that specialty items that come from,
Like Trader Joe's,
well, even smaller outfits than that, they might.
dollar
do-
store.
No,
Like the bean,
it's fancy food,
Yeah.
gourmet food from
Oh.
specialty lines.
Okay.
Never dated,
Oh yeah, right.
so. we
Like
just-
David and Harry and David.
Harriet's and
Yeah,
Yes.
Christmas
that kind of
items.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We just kind of go with what the product looks like, but
Yeah, that's all you can do on that. It's probably come from the last season of Christmas gifts, and they've probably got 4 or 5 Harry and David packages, and so they'll pass it on to the food bank, but not always. If it's questionable and it's still kind of marginal, I'd put it out in the freebie area.
The reality with the Nutrisystem and the other weight loss products like that is that our clients don't take them. They don't. So it's actually better to just put them right out for free. So the clients that are interested in taking them, they don't have to use the points on them.
These are items that I took over a period of days out of the goat box. I saved out 4 cans of corn that was dated 2017. There's no dents, there's no other deterioration on the cans, but they were thrown in the goat box. We went through a period of a lot of cans came in with torn labels like that. A lot of them went into the goat box. A small little tear is not going to keep it from going out on the client shelf. But when it gets like that, it does. So rather than there, put it out on the freebie area. It's,
You know where that came from?
different mice did that.
The mice were building nests.
yeah, some of the boxes were like that. And there were a number of the Alfredo boxes like this that was torn, and they were all thrown away. And they're all in a self-contained package inside. So just doing a little investigation, I would pass those on. But some of them did have some mice that were, but you could see the actual marks on it. Flip-top can opens like that, clients can still get in and open that can of soup, but I still would not put it out on the client choice. I would pass it on to the freebie. Still usable.
Is that a date, is it?
I'm sorry?
Was that a date?
No, the date's 17.
You just dented is all.
Yeah, and they threw away because it was dented. Yeah. No, here's the example of the bottom that can't be opened, and the top is crimped, but it could be opened. I wouldn't put it on the client choice, but I wouldn't throw it away. I'd put it on the freebie. They can still use that and get it in. Lipton sometimes dates, sometimes doesn't. This one was not dated, but just appearance-wise, it looks okay. I would put it on the freebie rather than in the goat box.
Does that have an internal packaging?
Yes. Yeah, they're in little packets in there. Yeah. This was thrown away 2017. tuna of the sea, only because the label was torn off. So I would put it out on the freebie area. Do you have any questions about the way the charts are made up and the understanding of best by, used by? The more you look at it and the more you understand it, the more it starts to make sense. When we first went to that, we had a lot of confusion on it, and but I think probably everybody is starting to get comfortable with. Again, it's like if it's used by, that's the big one. Used by is get rid of it. If it falls in that date. But best by or best before, best by, used by generally has about a 1, sometimes a 2-year date beyond what's on the can. Again, your determination of the product, what it is, will determine whether it goes here or out in the freebie area. But normally, vegetables and some of those with long-term life can stay and go on out in the client choice. So no questions on that? And then the other one is a little more explanation on the products itself. The canned foods, the tomatoes and pineapple and grapefruit with a high acidity, 2 years at the most. And then, of course, watch for the bulging. Dry goods, make sure if it has a package inside that would help contain the life of it, 3 to 5 years. But once it reaches that peak of 5 years, determine how long it might stay on the warehouse shelf before it goes out. You may want to get rid of that earlier. Jellies and jams generally have a pretty good life, 3 to 5 years, and certainly soups and vegetables as well. Canned milk, short life, 1 year. Dry milk, a long life of 6 years. When you're doing sorting and the box gets full, like the one on the other side there, you might take a little bit extra time and pull it out and get another King Super box and move it on, because then the crew that comes in the next day, they say, well, who was working that day? Didn't take the extra time. The flour area, or cake mixes and so forth, scrutinize those products real closely. Not all of those are self-contained, the flour and sugar. If it's a large container of sugar and flour, take it and put it out on the sorting table, and they'll break those 5 and 10 and 15-pound bags of flour and sugar down. I'm sure you know that.
When they break it down, do they put a date on it?
They're supposed to. Jello. Jello's in a container inside, and Jello has a long life to it. So very seldom do you ever have to throw Jello away. Most often, if it gets close to the dating on it, it can go out into the freebie area. Jello's got a long life on it. Mac and cheese. We get a lot of mac and cheese, particularly at the Postal Food Drive. And it's easy, just look at the box and slip it and put it in the box. But most generally, it's on the side of the box here and or on the top. So do take time on the mac and cheese because it's not self-contained inside, and so little varmints can get into the mac and cheese. And again, the pastas, they're really open and exposed for any entry there. But pasta does have a long life in spite of that. But do be cautious of the pastas. These you don't have to worry about. Rice. We had an experience here a year or two ago where we had some varmints inside the rice. They were walking around in there. And so even though it looks good, flipping it in there, from time to time, do take some time to look it over and see if anything is moving in there besides. Rice-A-Roni and this New Orleans style product here is, a lot of this gets by for some reason or another, but I probably can go out on the shelf now and probably find one or two of these boxes out there that are expired. The date's always on the bottom of this one, and the date on this one is always on the bottom. So they're easy to look at, but for some reason they're slipping by the sorters in the past. This one here, somebody tried to scratch out the date, probably the consumer, but it's still a 12, so it's okay. But be cautious of these two products. Beans, unless, most of them are labeled, but unless it still good on the date, look for, see now this one's got a hole in it. So we need to pull that one. But sometimes beans packaging gets kind of soiled and grungy looking, and if it's wipeable, they can be wiped off. Otherwise, put it out in the freebie area. Yeah, Jen.
Sorry. On those rice products there, are you saying that we should not keep them after the date marked on the box?
No. Just be cautious of it. For some reason, people are putting them by and not even looking at the date on them, because I keep finding them out there on the floor, and they're so easily found, the date on them.
For those, would we keep them for 2 or 3 years, something like that?
Not here.
No, on the date. How
Oh,
much
yeah,
past the
right,
date
yeah.
do we-
So box is 5 years.
Okay. Yeah.
Now on the wall down here, there is the guidelines from Purdue University Institute, and it deals with the packaging, the crimping, and the little tears, and then salad dressings, which those are really suspect as salad dressings. So be real cautious on scrutinizing salad dressings. The date, first of all, but then just looking at the contents inside to see if it's starting to deteriorate. And of course, flour and sugar is highly suspect because it's attracted by rodents and varmints. So be very discerning about flour and sugar. We've talked about the crimping and the bulging, but you can review that again. Rust, we didn't talk about rust. Some of the cans start to show rust after a short period of time. Don't even bother to put those on the freebie, throw those away. Again, dirt on the top of the cans, clean it off rather than putting it out. And then this is pretty much self-explanatory up here.
Waste, do we weigh waste?
Yes.
But you don't weigh like a can and record that.
Well, I wouldn't do it a can by can.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, on your shift,
There's
if
a
you-
threshold somewhere, I think.
Yeah, we record all of the donations that come in. I'm just going to give you a blanket statement. We record all the donations that come in terms of food, and then we weigh out all of the spoilage.
So we could everybody collect the spoilage in a box, and then we can just
In
weigh it
fact,
at
we
the
need
end
to weigh
of
the
the
goat
shift.
box, is what you're saying.
Exactly. That's the one thing that I don't like about the goat box, is that it's hard. People don't like to do it. They're happy to fill it up, but they don't want to throw it away.
Yeah, when do you weigh it?
Huh?
When do you weigh it? It weighs it.
At the end of your shift. Or, well, that's
Yeah,
not,
but
that
you
actually
do
is,
it.
that's not true. That's not true. That's not true. Let's talk about that.
When they come to pick up the discarded goat materials, be weighed at that time.
Yes,
That would be my thought,
right,
not individually daily,
right.
because some of that will slip by. Some shifts wouldn't weigh it, so it would be easier to weigh it all at the last.
Yeah, the challenge that we have is that right now, that I know of, we've actually got 3 either chicken or goat people that pick up infrequently. Janet's pretty good on Tuesday. We've got someone else that I just saw yesterday, in addition to another person on Friday. So that's why it's hard to say on this day, if it's not picked up, then throw it away. Yeah, now with that said, there will be times, especially now, we're keeping this discussion mainly to non-perishables. There will be times when we get large donations of perishables that we need to get rid of. And we're not gonna wait for Janet the next Tuesday to get rid of. So then I'll say, hey, we need to get rid of that.
So it goes to the dumpster?
Yeah.
So you weigh it first?
And then you gotta weigh it.
You weigh it first?
That is correct. And just keep in mind, like we put in the first training video, please, whatever, especially perishable food you're gonna throw away, please put in a garbage bag. Okay?
Like the bread.
The bread, the lettuce, the fruit, all of that stuff. It will make a mess of our dumpster.
There's going to be signage out here that this was no more sorting except by lead sorters, something worded to that effect. So it's going to be posted, and over a period of days or a week, we'll eliminate all of that extra help that's back here.
Right.
So you will govern all of that now, and if you see people back here, you'd say, excuse me, we have a new policy, and we're no longer using anybody to sort. I'm the lead sorter now, and if you like to talk to Mark or Jackie, well, you can.